Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Professor Ming's Strategic Insights. In one of our previous programs, we talked about that Xi Jinping and his top political associates think that they see a window of opportunity. And this window of opportunity may give them a chance to attack, to invade, or even to seize Taiwan. And then this contemplation was confirmed by his speech, by one of his speeches. He talked in his speeches about how the East is rising and the West is declining, meaning that Communist China is rising and the United States is declining. We talked about this before, but let me refresh your memory because it is important as of now. In Xi Jinping's speech, he said that there are several conditions which constitute this window of opportunity for them. Condition number one is the Ukraine war. He argues that if Russia gets an upper hand in the Ukraine battlefield or even advances more and holding firm the four states that he has seized and occupied from Ukraine, including the Crimea Peninsula. And the second condition has to do with the war in the Middle East. Should the war in the Middle East escalate and expand it even further, it will draw the attention of the United States and the European countries away from other things, especially from Taiwan. And the third condition is the campus riots or campus protests across the United States universities. It's about the war between Israel and Hamas. And the fourth condition has to do with Taiwan. And there was some kind of party confrontation inside Taiwan's Congress. We call it the legislative yuan. And should that become severe and even spread into the society, things may become ugly. And it's a good opportunity for the Chinese communists. Let me point to you that their argument is not totally ungrounded because they have witnessed and examined the unrest following the United States presidential election in 2020. Actually, it doesn't take all the conditions to come up to constitute this so-called window of opportunity for them. It probably takes only the social unrest caused by the presidential election in the United States and the campus protests or unrest, and plus an escalation of war here and there, then the window of opportunity may be open for them. For the leaders of Chinese Communist Party, this window of opportunity may present them a chance to seize Taiwan and to challenge Japan or even the United States. Why do I bring up this subject now, since we talked about it before? Because in their eyes, in the eyes of Chinese Communist leaders, there are some new situations coming, and which may be favorable to their contemplation. There are several things that get their attention. The first thing is the war in Ukraine again. We all know that Kim Jong-un, the leader of North Korea, has now dispatched some army to Russia and to help him out to fight the Ukrainian armies. Although we don't know exactly how many people they sent or how many army they sent, but anyway, it does increase the opportunity or increase the odds of the Russians to fight against the Ukrainians, especially in the eyes of Chinese communist leaders. It enhances the opportunity of Russian victory, not only in the battlefield, but also on the negotiation table, which will then force the United States and the European countries to pay more attention to the Ukraine war and to get involved in it deeper, and whereby to reduce their attention to elsewhere, especially in the Taiwan region. And the second thing that gets their attention is that the war in the Middle East. Now that the Israelis have escalated and expanded their war, not only against Hamas, not only against the Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, but perhaps a war against Iran. Although the probability is still low, but we cannot rule out the possibility of a war, a major war between Israel and Iran. That's how the Chinese Communist leaders are contemplating. Again, it'll divert the attention of the European countries and the United States. And the third event that deserves our attention is the relations between China, Communist China, and India. They had a long-time dispute over border territories. But now that seems the things have been cooling down. Rumor has it that China has ceded a large chunk of territory to India. So India let it go. We don't know whether the news is true or not, but we know that the tension has been reduced in the area. That gives China a freer hand to deal with events elsewhere. For instance, Taiwan Strait. As they see it. In addition to these three ongoing events, a fourth one is coming. That is the American presidential election on November the 5th. In the eyes of Chinese communist leaders, social unrest or even riots are inevitable. Why is that? Because on July the 13th, Trump was almost assassinated when he was delivering a speech in Pennsylvania. And on September the 15th, there was a second assassination attempt against Trump when he was playing golf. So again, in the eyes of Chinese communist leaders, there are so many people in the United States who hate Trump to the point that they want to kill him. So it could happen during the election or even after he takes office. So inevitable in the United States is inevitable as they see it. And not to mention the possible social riots or campus protests across the United States. So in their eyes, the American election, the coming American election is definitely a window of opportunity for the Chinese communists. Before we move on, let me take you back to March the 21st, 2023. Xi Jinping was paying a visit to Moscow, and he met with Putin. They talked about a lot of things, the war in Ukraine, the war in the Middle East, and other things, of course, possible military operation against Taiwan and things like that. And remember that when Xi Jinping walked out of the state dinner, and Putin walked him out of the corridor, and at the gate, before Xi Jinping got into his car, Xi Jinping stopped and turned to Putin and said, "This is a change of world politics for 100 years. Let's promote it together, or let's work for it together." Meaning they want to challenge and to overthrow the world order, the current world order, and the value systems associated with it. So if these events do constitute the window of opportunity for the Chinese communist leaders, what kind of actions would they take against Taiwan should they want to attack Taiwan, invade Taiwan and seize Taiwan? Of course, you can think of an all-out invasion or some kind of smaller operation. But what if they carry out some kind of gray zone tactics, such as embargoes, boycotts, or large-scale cyber warfare and things like that? That's what people are most concerned about and people have been talking about. So how should we respond? Let's just talk about the American side. Some of you may know, but most people may not realize that there is an American law, a domestic law of the United States that can deal with the situation. This law is called the Taiwan Relations Act, which was passed by the Congress, by both chambers of the United States Congress, and then signed into law in 1979. It's the Taiwan Relations Act. This is a very long document, so let me just cite the most relevant part so that you know that what I'm talking about. In this law, in this Taiwan Relations Act, Section 3301, Item B, under the title of Policy, it says like this: it is a policy of the United States. And point number 3, let me read it out to you. To make clear that the United States' decision to establish diplomatic relations with the People's Republic of China, namely Communist China, rests upon the expectation that the future of Taiwan will be determined by peaceful means. That's point number 3. And point number 4, it is the policy of the United States to consider any effort to determine the future of Taiwan by other than peaceful means, including, take note, by boycotts or embargoes, a threat to the peace and security of the Western Pacific area and of grave concern to the United States. In short, the United States can revoke its diplomatic recognition of the People's Republic of China should they take any non-peaceful means against Taiwan. So that's American law, American domestic law to deal with this situation. So by now, we have discussed the Chinese Communist Party's contemplation on their window of opportunity, and we have also discussed the possible United States option in response to it. You may still think that the Chinese Communist vision is crazy, but let me remind you, they are kind of serious about it. Remember the World Proletarian Revolution we talked about? And remember that we talked about they're preparing for a war to implement the so-called World Proletarian Revolution. They are thinking along the line of, the possibility of a nuclear warfare and a warfare with chemical or even with biological weapons. They are preparing for it. Well, for them, it's a window of opportunity. For us, it's a miscalculation on their part. But let me remind you, or remind all of us, we have to be prepared. Not only Taiwan has to be prepared for it, we have to prepare for it militarily and also psychologically. We must be conscious of the possibility that they may take this time and really implement it. And for the United States, you have to be prepared militarily, psychologically, and hopefully you have a smooth and peaceful election, a presidential election, and also a smooth and peaceful transition of political power in early 2025. So in conclusion, as I pointed out at the very beginning of this program, Xi Jinping or his political associates may think that they see a window of opportunity. But as we see it, it's a miscalculation on their part. So for us, we have to make the best preparation for it. We have to issue unmistaken signals that we are preparing for it, and we have made very good preparation for it, so that to reduce the possibility of miscalculation on their part, hence the avoidance of a war. Okay, I think that's what I want to share with you today. Let's hope for the best and prepare for the best. We'll see you next time then.